So, hello and welcome. April and I have just been chatting, and you probably heard some of our backstage banter because, that's what it's like. So, how you doing, April?
Doing great, Sarah. How are you?
I'm good. I am finished for the week, so this is not water; it is G&T. Um, so yeah, this should be fun ever. Thank you for coming along, and thank you to everybody for tuning in. We are just going to have a bit of fun and a bit of banter. I hope banter translates. April, you tell me because you're multicultural. You know a bit of.
It's not as much fun as the word pants, but banter for the American means oh God, I'm bad at translating. I've been out of the country too long. Oh, I got nothing. My translation is broken. Oh, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine.
Awesome. Good stuff. So, let's do a little introduction for everybody that maybe doesn't know who we are. So, do you want to kick off and tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm April Edwards. I'm a senior software engineer at Microsoft. What does that mean? I'm part of the CSE organization. We're Build with Code with customers. We go into the largest customer accounts in the world, and we go help them deploy their applications and their environments into Azure.
Awesome. That sounds really fun. If anybody doesn't know me, I am a cloud advocate at Microsoft. And that really means that I do fun and interactive stuff like this, as well as collecting product feedback to send back to our engineering teams. And I always say we want good and bad feedback because that's how we make our products better and enhance them and keep the good ones from being good and that kind of stuff as well. So I want to just have a bit of a chat. So what have you been up to this week, April? Have you been busy with customer engagements, or is it quiet, or what's been happening?
It's been busy. I've had customer engagements actually all week. I have a new customer project that we're working on. I can't speak about it, but we do design sessions with customers. So when we get engaged with a customer, we have kind of like an idea of what the project is. It gets approved, and we get kind of funding to proceed. And we do a design session with the customer. So we've done 2 days of 6-hour calls. Yeah, that's fun. So usually we go in the room with a customer, sit with them and have conversation, build that relationship. And instead it's been over the phone over multiple time zones for 6 hours for a couple days. So that's been tough. But that's mostly this new customer project. I had a release of a video yesterday with a blog attached. So more blogging. So how about yourself?
I have been creating content, which has been fun, but also quite stressful. So I'm working on some video, and I've been recording the screen, like the demo of that, then the audio, then the talking head, me appearing in the video and doing all of that. So I've been having fun today trying to edit all of that together and sync it all together and test my video editing skills. So hopefully that'll be good fun. So I finished it, so it'll come out in a couple of weeks' time. So that's another level to my job now that we're not doing as many in-person events, and I can't go to professional studios and get help with some of the professional videographers and stuff like that. So definitely stretching myself. But yeah, that's what it's all about, right? If our day jobs were the same every day, then it would be hell of a boring.
Absolutely. How do you find the video editing side? So have you found kind of adding that element into your role and that stress, I guess? Because for me, it's been a bit stressful to say, oh, you have to record things, learn new software, which is cool. But it's not just going and doing a talk anymore. It's everything around it that other people used to do. So how do you find it?
I struggled to begin with. I struggled to find I want to say brand for videos and find that right way of doing all of that. Lots of people do like talking heads and they don't have demos, or you have slides and stuff like that. I've tried to mix it up, and I think every bit of my videos are different. And I think I'm starting to get into a stride of what it looks like. And if you see a video by me, it's the same format and, expect the same kind of things. And there's definitely been lots of searching on YouTube for tutorials on how to do things. weird terminology being put into my search engine so that I can actually figure out how to do something. Because I like to have, if I'm doing like a screencast, my little talking head in the corner. But I didn't know what that was called, and I've had to figure out how to do what I use Adobe Premiere Pro to edit my videos. So I've managed to figure out how to do keyframes to resize it so that it looks small and it doesn't just like jutter in. So I'm big and then all of a sudden small. But I didn't know it was called a keyframe, April. So I spent ages searching for what that actual was. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's been fun. But yeah, definitely added an extra element of, I don't want to say stress, but complication to what I'm kind of doing, to be honest. But fun. It's all about stretching yourself. So
it is, and it's growth mindset, right? We're all about that at Microsoft. I have my day-to-day job, and when I go into a customer project, there's new technology. So my current project has a lot of AI and ML in it. Not my remit. There's a lot of code, I hope. Otherwise, I'm going to be up a creek without a paddle. But it should be code. I am actually building something this week, which is pretty cool. But yeah, it adds that stress to just be able to get up and speak and do everything. But it's cool. It's good to learn. It's good to expand our skill sets. It's definitely something I found a bit difficult as well. So we went into lockdown, and I was approached by where I was on Microsoft Ignite the tour. I was supposed to be in Mexico City in March, end of March, and I was gutted. I didn't get to go because I may have booked a scuba diving holiday off the back of that. I think my husband was more pissed off than I was, but I was just like, oh, I really want to go to Mexico City. So anyways, that did happen. And I got approached by someone at Microsoft to say, hey, by the way, can you record a couple of your sessions? And I'm like, yes, I don't have equipment. I don't know what I'm doing. Help. So yeah, I had to, in the throes of lockdown, order equipment to get recording and then figure out how to do it. And then it's a whole different feel. So for me, it was weird talking to myself in a room. It took literally 50 takes on my first video because I would record like 3 minutes and stop and be like, I'm talking to myself.
Yeah.
So I had to get over talking to myself and speaking to myself. That was really tough.
Yeah, that's definitely a different element, and knowing when to look at the camera and when not to look at the camera, because that's also a bit weird.
Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, so have you been doing speaking engagements virtually? Because obviously that's a big part of your role, or it was doing speaking at either conferences or user groups. Have you been doing them virtually as well?
Yes, I have done a load of podcasts. So shameless plug-in. Build was remote this year. Microsoft Build was remote. I did a session on that with Gene Kim, which was incredible, to chat to Gene Kim, who's written the Phoenix Project. So anyone's into DevOps or wants to learn more about DevOps, it's such a phenomenal book. I mean, it's IT fiction, which, I'm a bit iffy on, but it gives you relatability. Even as an ops person or dev person, like you have worked with those people, and reading the book was amazing. So having to work with Gene was amazing. And then all these other events have been online, and it's been a bit interesting because of time zones as well. So I've done recordings, user groups. So I've been up at 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. doing recordings back in the US, which has prompted some interesting conversations at home. So I have a new office being built, which is amazing. Outside of the house, so that I don't wake people up at 1 a.m. because I'm not the quietest person. But yeah, I miss the people interaction. And but yeah, I've been doing a lot of online stuff. I'm doing a lot of online stuff, which is great, which is absolutely great because you actually reach more people, like everyone is today.
I know I've found that I've been doing a summer tour of user groups, and I think I've done 10, I want to say about 10 user groups over the last couple of months. And it's great that I'm being able to present in front of different audiences that I probably wouldn't have been able to get to physically, even if we weren't locked down, right? But it's definitely an interesting experience because you don't see the audience. Not everybody has their camera turned on, so you're not getting that instant eye-to-eye contact with someone or seeing them nod. And I think people are a bit shy on some of the user groups I've been going on, so they're not coming on and like asking questions or pinging me afterwards to ask questions. So yeah, I definitely miss the interaction that you get when you're in person with someone. and exchanging, stickers, or sometimes I've given away like Scottish shortbread at events and stuff, crazy
awesome.
stuff like that.
That's awesome.
So I definitely miss that element, but I'm not going to stop doing the virtual thing until everybody gets bored of me and stops inviting me. But yeah.
We have an open hack program at Microsoft, and that is free to sign up for customers externally. And it's on a technology set. So I have been leading a lot of the containers open hacks in the recent few months. And previously I would travel to that. So in January, I was in Istanbul at an open hack. That was awesome. I was coaching. I was in Munich, Germany at an open hack a few months before that. And then I was asked to be the technical lead for a couple open hacks recently in the past few months. And they're like, oh, this is going to be remote. And I'm like, oh, okay. So the first one was UK based primarily. So that was fine. The other one was in India. So most of 80% of the participants are in India. So you're fighting time zones. So I was up and online at 5 a.m. on that one. But what I found is people were really into the technology, and because they were given the 3 days in the hack, and because we kind of are home, we're bleeding those lines between personal and work quite a bit. And they were hacking away and so involved. And it was amazing to see. But I had to tell the coaches, it is 5 p.m. We stop. But people don't put on their video. So we did some things to make it more video friendly. So we had wear your favorite dev t-shirt or your tech t-shirt. I have the same GitHub shirt you have. So I wore that one day. I wore my code like a girl t-shirt. So yeah, I think people are getting into it, and it's a lot of a culture shock as well. But the technical side, we're actually able to consume more. And I see Phil's commented about my session from Build. It is on Channel 9, Phil. You can search for it. Also on my website, azapril.dev. I have a videos link, and I have the link for the Build site in there, and I have a bunch of other videos and podcasts. So shameless plug. But it is somewhere on Channel 9. I did see it because I pulled it off of there. But yeah.
Awesome. So did you enjoy Build being virtual?
I did. That was interesting because we followed the sun in Build. So we got to, usually Builds ran out of the US in Seattle. Seattle. I don't remember which city they hosted in. We just had Inspire and Ready last week, and that's in Vegas. So I'm like, which city? Yeah. So Build's usually in Seattle, and it has limited capacity, and not everyone can pick up and travel. So to actually have a wider audience was amazing. I think there were over 5,000 people tuned into the session with Gene Kim and myself.
Oh, wow.
So it's good not to know the numbers at the time. I don't want to know how many people are watching this at the moment. It's not that I get nervous. I'm just
Yeah.
But afterwards you're like, holy crap, I just reached 5,000 people at once. You never do that in person. I mean, the largest audience size I've had in person is about 1,500. And some of my videos, my technical videos, have hit 30,000 viewers, which I think is amazing.
Yeah.
So scalability is really good in this time, the ability to scale and reach people worldwide. So,
I'm kind of excited to see what we're doing with Ignite, because obviously that's going virtual. We should have all been in New Orleans in September. So it'll be interesting to see. I haven't heard anything. I do not have any NDA news around when it is or what it is, but it'll be exciting to see what we can do with that, especially since we've had Build, we've had our internal ones as well, we've had Ready and we've had Inspire. So we've got lots of, hopefully, lessons to have learned from these events, and we can build them into Ignite and hopefully make that bigger and better. But we'll see. No pressure on the team.
I'm sure they're listening in. When's Ignite happening? And I think our customers and our consumers love it. They love these events. One of the biggest things that we took away from Build, I know working with some of the team, was how to get that personal experience. So when I was on Ignite the tour, in all the different cities I went to, people didn't know who I was. They're like, oh, but you know about this technology. So to have that interaction with someone one-to-one, and I had one-to-one customer meetings, or one-to-many, I should say. Either I had customer meetings while I was in that city and location, or I was, one-to-one at a booth that they organized for you at Ignite. And that was awesome. It was great to see the customers. It's great to share that real world experience, because for a customer, they're like, I have a problem. How do I solve it? And you're like, oh yeah, I've actually done that before. I've worked on it. They have someone in front of them that has tangible experience. That's what we need to get out of these online events. I think so. I think we should have people in the audience ask some questions. I feel like we need to involve them in some technical questions, or
all the hard questions, because it's after 5 p.m. and
I know it's
not getting drunk.
I don't have a vodka soda. I'm waiting for a
Okay,
question. I'm
I
waiting
totally
for a
believe you.
question. I
Yeah.
want a difficult question. Actually, I just did a recording with a gentleman about an hour and a half ago.
Mhm.
Um, and he is trying to influence people in the tech world and public speaking. And he asked me like what I enjoyed and how I grew up speaking. So Sarah, for you, kind of how did you fall into speaking and how have you worked on it? How have you grown into it?
So I completely fell into it by mistake. About 3 or 4 years ago, I was on that journey from on-prem and starting to get a bit scared with my career. Like, where's on-prem going? Am I going to become like obsolete? And I need
Yeah.
to. So I started learning Azure, and I was quickly finding there was a lack of documentation back then, right? Because 4 years ago, probably we didn't have the awesome documentation and doc site that we have now. And I started to look at user group communities and see if there was one in my area. And there wasn't, April. The nearest one to me was in London, which obviously being based in Scotland isn't really commutable every other like couple of weeks for a user group. So I started the Glasgow Azure user group. And from there, people were like, right, you need to speak. And I'm like, no, what? No, I'm just the person that opens the door and gets the pizza and stuff. I don't want to speak. And eventually a bit of peer pressure got me, and I did an event. My first ever event was at Tech UG, and I spoke about Office 365 and whether you needed to have backup solution or not attached to your Office 365 installation. And to be honest, from there, April, I've just continued to speak at events and get bigger and better event type things, and get outside of Glasgow and speak outside of Glasgow. So yeah, that's kind of how I fell into it. And then I fell into this role, and yeah, the rest is kind of history. So
It's always by accident. When people are like, trace out your career in tech and how you got to where you were. And I'm like, do you have a very squiggly line that goes backwards, forwards, up and down, sideways, and diagonal? Um, it never is a natural progression. Like I didn't plan on being here at all. Like my life plan was not to do any of this. I failed at my life plan to be a ski bum or doctor. I was trying to be a doctor, but more of a ski bum / scuba diving bum, and I failed at all of that. I mean, so yeah.
I know I listened to you doing Lisa's podcast, Lisa on the Edge, and hearing your
Mhm.
story. And I was in the car driving, and I couldn't help but laugh the whole way through. You two were mad and crazy, and your story is also mad and crazy in a good way, April.
Nothing in my life is straightforward. But you know what? I think also too, like the Northerners of the UK, the Scottish people, the Glaswegians. I forget, is Lisa Glaswegian? I think she
She's from
is.
No, she's from Dundee.
Dundee. Yeah, sorry, it's north of me. So everything above like Watford is north, right? Um, we just get along so well because the humor, the banter is phenomenal. And she's also someone that is like has just really grown her career and fallen into it, and it's great to see. So I see a question from Matt Brown at live events. How do you deal with questions you don't have an answer for? Easy. I will find the answer for you. In all honesty, that's true. So um, I get questions all the time when I'm on stage about like we go to present a topic and it will be on DevOps or whatever. I get all sorts of questions. I did a Q&A yesterday and there were questions like so far out of left field, not really DevOps-y, but kind of, but not really. I know
Yeah.
how there's a connection, but just experience. So being in the industry for a really long time, I've kind of seen a lot of things, and having had my career all over the place, that helped. But when I don't know the answer to something, especially in Azure is a massive platform, and there's certain things I just don't touch, or I will either like ask them to contact me and reach out via like Twitter or LinkedIn, or if I'm somewhere where I'm physically near someone, I can take them to find an expert. Like Ignite the Tour was great for that. But I usually try to connect people up with the right people. But if I don't know the answer, I said, actually, I haven't really worked with that as much. Let me find out for you. It's okay to say no, you don't know something, and help that person get there. And having been on the outside of Microsoft for so long, because I worked in kind of the partner land, Microsoft's a big machine. So you're one human being and going, I have this question, I know someone's done it. So helping that person navigate to the right answer is, I think, really critical. So I don't expect to know the answer to everything ever.
Yep. I think I've got over that fear of saying I don't know, because often when you're standing up on stage at these events, everybody expects you to know everything, right? And like you said, Azure's such a big platform, we can't know everything. But what we can do is find that answer and connect them with the right people. So I've definitely got over the fear of saying to someone, I don't know, but I can find out for you. And then answering that question later on via social media or whatever it may be, and hooking them up that way. That's definitely the way I work. Obviously the way you work as well. So either we're both doing it wrong or we're both doing it right.
I think, the reason why we both have, I think are, I would say, use the word successful in what we do is because we find the right answer. We find the answer. And for me, having worked in the environments I've been in, I was thrown into situations, neck deep into things and having to find the answer out on my own, sometimes at 3 a.m. when there was an outage and I was crying myself into a corner in a data center, or the application doesn't work, something breaks, DNS issue. Like there's so many things that can go wrong in IT, right? I've just kind of, nose to the grindstone, found the answer. And when you don't, you don't. I think the most dangerous thing is when you know a little bit about something and then you realize I've stuck my foot in it. So, so there's certain topics I don't speak about. I had someone ask me a SharePoint question and I was like, right, diverting you over here to this person who knows all about SharePoint. So there's some questions where I know a bit about SharePoint, but I'm like, no, I don't want to get into that one.
Awesome. So I think we've got another question here from Phil, and he's asking, what are our go-to resources for learning new things? What's your go-to?
For learning new things, I'm assuming Phil's asking about on Azure, because learning new things in general is a big, broad brushstroke of a question. So for Azure, so I used to not understand Twitter, like at all. I just kind of didn't get it. I started really subscribing to Twitter when I was traveling to customer sites, like on trains and stuff in the UK, like to London or on a plane, wherever. And I could see feeds of like the latest tech stuff. I was like, oh, cool. And I can snapshot that in my brain and go, oh, I read something about that, read it later, or I'll email it to myself and read it later. So for me, that snapshot really helps me. So that's kind of like my scrolling social media, sitting out with a book or something and needing something to look at. But I find that like MS Learn is a great platform for people that are getting into Azure and wanting to learn. We've done such a great job in documentation. So MS Learn has some great resources. I've used it internally as well, like with colleagues. They're like, I need to know more about Active Directory or networking. And I'm like, we have a module in MS Learn. And they're like, oh my God, great idea. Like it's such an amazing platform. Channel 9. We have videos for we have the DevOps Lab, we have Azure Fridays, we have some great videos. So I think you have to find what also works for you. We have tons of blogs at Microsoft. So subscribe to kind of those blogs. A lot of them get promoted out through Twitter and LinkedIn, but also you can subscribe to them in RSS feeds. So I think for me, it's ingesting information. I just scroll. I just have to scroll down and go, that appeals and that doesn't, whatever. And those are really the ways I ingest new information all the time.
It's interesting here you say that you scroll through Twitter and then maybe send yourself that email to read it later on. I do that. I even have a folder of stuff I should read. And when I've got space in my diary, I go into that folder and I read it. So
the list that keeps growing and never shrinks. That's what I call it. But there's so much to learn. And what I always tell people is, when people are starting to learn Azure, I'm like, right, go to Azure Fundamentals, learn the basics, because it's a good wraparound to get your foot in the door, but then pick the topics that interest you. And I've really delved into topics that really interest me. And we have a question about Terraform and Azure policy. There's a couple Terraform questions. So Terraform is an interesting one. So we have Azure ARM templates, which are fantastic. There is a learning barrier with Azure ARM templates, and they're Azure specific. So for those of you watching that might know my background, I've done a lot of videos with Terraform. I'm a HashiCorp ambassador. I spend a lot of time working in Terraform, and a lot of my customer projects are deployed with Terraform. Now, Terraform doesn't have every capability built into it. A lot of what my team does is we build that capability and we contribute. So if we're working with a customer, we need to deploy something and that capability isn't there, we help to engineer that. We build it. That's what senior software engineers at Microsoft do. But also people from the community can commit that code and help build it as well. And there's a question about Azure policy. Absolutely. We have some great repos on GitHub that allow you to access some of the projects that already have that outlined for you. We have the CAF model as well. I believe that's in there, Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you can pull that from there. And there's another question about having all the coverage on Terraform. Yeah, I think when you have any brand new service to Azure, usually isn't covered in Terraform. It's not. Either you have to automate it a different way, or usually when a service is in general availability, it's usually a provider in Terraform. Usually, it's in the ARM provider. But usually, you have to automate it another way. You can do it with an ARM template. But if you're using full CI/CD pipelines with like Azure DevOps or GitHub Actions, there's a way to automate it, and that's usually what we do. We find another way to automate it, and then we can build into our code when it becomes a working in the provider.
Awesome. So you recently got an award though from your Terraform work. Is that right? Did I see that? Am I talking?
I mean, I didn't get like a plaque, but we have, which would have been cool. I do have some free swag coming. So HashiCorp devised the ambassador program. That is similar to the Microsoft MVP program. I won't say similar, like much less scale. So people that are leaders in the community got elected as ambassadors. So I got elected as an ambassador recently, and it's an awesome community of people that I've been so privileged to be joined into, because I was working with Terraform because I believed in it as a product and into Azure. And I found customers really responded well to Terraform. They, from an ops perspective, learning that format of a template and code was so much easier than an ARM template. And it crossed the barrier of people that were in multi-clouds. It answered that question on premise or, AWS or GCP. So I was really like getting into it. So now it's great to be part of a community and understand how they got into it, how they use it. And the other day I was on with the ambassadors, and someone asked a question about having a technical issue. I was like, oh, I wrote a blog on that. They're like, oh my God, this is my exact issue. So now I feel like I'm helping, us mere mortals learn Terraform, which I think is fantastic, but then be able to help other people in the industry and have that camaraderie is amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So I know I have another group of people outside of Microsoft that have other life experiences that I can go to, which I think is awesome.
Awesome. Well done. Phil's commented here that Terraform's great for deploying, but not so much management. Would you agree with that, or do you think he's wrong?
That is correct. So Terraform is not meant to maintain an environment. You have tools like Ansible that can help maintain. What we usually do is we deploy with Terraform. We maintain with desired state configuration in Azure. I'm a massive PowerShell fan. I just came off a customer project, and we just kind of reorged a little bit at Microsoft. So my teams have moved. I've moved from one team to a new team recently. And my old team was open source. So people that think Microsoft doesn't support open source, I would introduce them to my entire team. Like, we are massive open source peoples. And we're deploying this customer project, and we need to maintain the state of the environment. And I said, oh, we can do that in DSC. And the guys on my team were looking at all these other options, like, oh, we could build this, we could code this. And I'm like, time out. It's already done for us. Let's go to DSC. And they're like, but it's PowerShell. And I'm like, but it works. And it's awesome. So I actually started slowly molding my open source team into loving PowerShell. So we use DSC to maintain state. So that's something we fully implemented for a customer recently.
Awesome. That sounds really good. So you said your team's changed. So what's your focus now if it's not open source, or is it still open source and just a different manager structure?
So I report into a team in EMEA previously. Right. Now I'm in a UK-based team, so they've aligned us by country. My team previously was cloud native, so we were Kubernetes, cloud native open source peoples. I say peoples because I was the only girl, but guys, if you will. A great set of people to work with, amazing people. But we were broken up to take all these amazing talents and help make other teams better as well and spread that. So we were all the same technology, not the same technology stack, but in that same bubble, if you will, different areas, but in bubbles. So I got moved to a team here in the UK, and everyone on my team has a different technology skill set. So like I have AI guys, data people, and yeah, so we're in completely different skill sets. So now when we engage with a customer, we can touch on all the components of a solution and not have to always go out of our what we call a dev crew.
Okay, that sounds awesome. Shannon said +1 for DSC. Absolutely. I think I was first introduced to DSC back when we had Exchange on-prem, and we had to do all that configuration and make sure all the servers had the right things, because Exchange was crazy back then, because you had to have, I can't remember now, because there was like 3 different servers you had to have, or basically 3 or 4 different server roles on Exchange to make it all work, right?
Well, actually needed 5 depending on the version of Exchange you're on. Exchange 2020. No, I'm not going to go into my Exchange background. I have a lot of experience with Exchange. I don't want to admit it because I don't want to field M365 questions. But yeah, Exchange had very specific requirements to run on premise, especially in 2010. But yeah, you had 5 different, usually they were in 5 different servers because you had different roles in that environment. But yeah, DSC was great to help maintain that. I would say in my previous infrastructures, we didn't use DSC. I used PowerShell to manipulate Active Directory, get information out, run reporting, and automate some stuff. But I had a large environment, and I was kind of like a one-man band in some of my organizations I worked for. It was tough. So automation was really key. But I never I look at what some people do with scripting now in PowerShell, and I love it. I absolutely love it. I love watching it. It's just people that can automate, and you said you came from an infrastructure background. I did as well. If you can automate, you have a job for life. Like, we need more automation people. Infrastructure isn't going away, but we need to be able to automate everything to de-risk human error. I mean, I can definitely run out of fingers and toes counting the times I brought down someone's system because of a naming issue or a color issue or April's too tired, it's 3 a.m. issue. So yeah.
I did that one. So I came off the back of a night of patching servers. So the old task of 2 a.m. in the morning, having it go in a data center and patch the servers. And then I had a few hours sleep, came back in and was finishing off some bits and pieces. And I don't know what I was doing, April. I genuinely have no idea what I was doing, but I started detaching the cluster storage off our Exchange boxes.
Why?
I think I was actually trying to take like one offline so as I could patch it. And then I don't know what I was doing. And then it was when I was getting to the last one to detach it. I'm like, I don't think this is right. I think I'm not doing the right thing. I was like this close from bringing down the whole of Exchange because I was detaching the storage from the servers. So yeah, I suppose we've all been there.
Yeah. So Anthony Bartolo asked us, what is our favorite module on MS Learn? Sarah, what's yours?
Probably some of the artificial intelligence ones, which is a bit strange because that's definitely not my bag. But I've recently been studying for is it AI 900 exam? Is that what it's called? The new fundamentals ones we have released for artificial intelligence. So I've been working through some of the modules on Learn so as I can potentially sit that exam and hopefully pass it. So it's pretty cool because it's something I don't know about, or it's something I've touched on years ago and we've grown the capability. So I'm like, oh, we have that. All right, I need to go and shiny and play with that now in the portal.
Yes. No, it's like I take the things I don't know and I go into MS Learn and learn about it. I actually don't have a favorite MS Learn module. I will admit I've never been through an entire module.
Yeah, okay.
Like in its entirety. I've done bits and pieces because I'll pick and choose what I want to learn about. I'm not ADD. I'm busy. So Deep Star asks, great PowerShell learning materials. There is there is some online stuff with, I don't know if it's on MS Learn. There is PowerShell in a month of lunches, I believe is what it's titled. That's a great resource as well. Actually, one of my favorite PowerShell stories of all time has nothing to do with breaking a system. Just over a year ago, I flew out to Seattle to record my Terraform video with Abel Wang. And this was my first time on Channel 9, so I'm a newbie. And I prepped like you wouldn't believe. Like, I was ready to go. I was like, my demos are working. I'm okay. We're going to do this. My first time doing an actual recording for Microsoft. So that was it still is a big deal, but it was like, that first time. And we go out there and I meet Abel in the morning. Now, Abel and I had spoken online, like over video chat, but he was in Seattle. I'm here in the UK. So I flew out morning of, rocked up pretty early for my recording because I'm like, I don't want to be late. It's my first time at corporate campus, like doing work and not just for a visit. And rock up to talk to Abel. And I'm like, yeah, everything's ready. Demo's ready. And we started talking about it. I was like, yeah, I changed my demo a bit for the video. And I said, I want to be more dev. So I wrote everything in Bash. And Abel looked at me and goes, I'm a PowerShell guy, right? And I'm like, oh. So I really took myself out of my comfort zone of doing everything in PowerShell and did my whole demo in Bash, and I had to prep the demo in Bash. I kind of like, I don't know this. I want to, it's going to be great. So I do the recording, nothing broke. I didn't change it because I was like, I just don't mess with something that isn't broken, right? And for lunch, he's like, let's go grab lunch. We'll have lunch with Jeffrey Snover.
Only a minor celebrity at Microsoft.
So for those of you who don't know Jeffrey Snover, he is the inventor of PowerShell. So here I am recording my first video with Abel Wang, changed my whole demo away from PowerShell, then having lunch with Jeffrey Snover, and Abel during lunch goes, so April, tell Jeffrey what you did today. And I literally just smacked my head on the lunch table. I was like, I'm done. I'm done here. I'm like, my career's over. So that was the day where I said, I can do PowerShell and be dev enough. I can be dev enough doing that. And I'm proud to show off the technologies I love and I embrace it. And PowerShell is very open source now as well. Like when I say it's very open source, like we see a lot of, Linux people now using PowerShell. It's not just it's not Windows PowerShell anymore. It's PowerShell. So
awesome. So we've got a couple of questions. Brian's asking, how do you balance delivery for your customers and learning new things and keeping up to date? So for me, I book time in my diary to do learning. Don't always do it. Sometimes I get distracted by like Twitter and stuff. But yeah, I book out time in my diary. Genuinely, my Friday is really that meetingless day. I don't have much in there, and that's usually my learning or catch up or admin or, just trying to get everything straight. I know not everybody has the luxury to do that with their diary, but that's certainly how I work. And I've always been encouraged at Microsoft to do that.
Yeah, I think so. Brian, I came from partner land where I was on site delivering to customers. So I was billed out to a customer. So I'm there being billed out of whatever the customer's paying for me for the day. And I had to deliver something to a customer and I didn't have time. Now I will say I learned on the job. I say every day is a school day, pretty much. I pretty much learn something new every single day or try to. So, in the time before I learned on the job, and it was really, really tough to learn. It was either evenings or weekends. Maybe if I was traveling, that's how the Twitter thing kind of came into play. And I might watch movies or not movies, but like, YouTube videos or learning videos online, Pluralsight courses, stuff like that. Now, I learn as I'm doing a customer project. All of my customer projects have new stuff. I do not walk into a customer project where I'm like, oh, I know exactly all this technology end to end. Like my current project is AI ML. No clue. I have to hook in a logic app into a service that I haven't hooked into before. I know logic apps, but I don't know how to do the service. I know how to do the code, but I don't know anything around it. But then there's specific APIs I have to hook into that may not work. So I'm like testing all new things. So for me, it's learning on the job, on the fly, most of the time. I would say I do try to carve out learning time. Like Sarah, you get distracted a lot. I turn off my email. I turn off my Teams. The reality is nobody's going to die if I don't pick up my email. Nobody's going to die if I don't respond to them in 2 seconds. If somebody needs me, I have a mobile phone that can call that. I turn everything off and I have to focus. So I do put in some focus time, but I would say I learned quite a bit. So especially in CSE, we have kind of 3 pillars. We have build, share, learn. So we're in the build phase with the customer. We have a sharing phase, and learning kind of happens like the entire time. So we do a lot of pair programming as well. So in a customer project, in a sprint, I'll pick up some tasks in the backlog that I may know nothing about and I'm completely uncomfortable, but I'm there to learn with my colleague. I might just be a second set of eyes. Could be, he could be coding something in C# and C# isn't my strongest language, or he could be doing something in a technology stack that I don't know. And we pair program a lot. So that's a really good thing to do is if you can, have colleagues you can pair up with as well on projects, that's a great thing to do. That's probably the, on the job learning that's the best thing you can do.
Awesome. We have a question from Russ as well about, are we having many Azure DevOps versus GitHub Actions conversations? Which is,
every
I think, a controversial question as well.
It is every day. It's not controversial. We have those questions a lot. I have given a lot of DevOps talks and everyone asks the question. I gave a GitHub Actions talk internally to Microsoft last week. It was for an internal management team. So it hit like 400 people in Microsoft. Yes, that is a conversation we have with customers. So, okay. So we have Azure DevOps, the product. Okay. And then Microsoft acquired GitHub. GitHub is its own entity as such. It's its own team. Azure DevOps has so many facets that make it a kind of an all-in-one package product. When we use Azure DevOps, we say any platform, any code. So you want to deploy on premise to AWS, GCP, or Azure, you can do it. You can bring any type of code or language that you develop in to Azure DevOps, and we have different elements in that. We have full project tracking, we have our CI/CD pipelines, we have Azure repos, we have compliance, and all sorts of great tools built into product. It is literally an all-in-one place. If you have a tool that you're using in your development environment that you're like, oh, does Azure DevOps do this? 99.9% of the time it does. So GitHub Actions is great. You can absolutely use it for CI/CD, but you can do it to automate tasks. So not just CI/CD. So the talk I gave last week was about how you can do it for other tasks, not just the whole CI/CD platform and automation and DevOps. So you could have someone maybe follow your GitHub repo, and you can then automate sending them an email to say, thank you for following my repo. Just, here's who I am. Maybe just, a few, a nice little readme about who you are, what the project is, and contribution to it. Maybe a couple rules around, please play nice. Everybody needs to be treated fairly. So you can do a lot of that. So the reality is GitHub Actions do not do everything that Azure DevOps do at all. There's a massive investment into Actions. On the same front, Azure DevOps is not going anywhere. We have roadmaps for both products, and actually today they just published the public GitHub roadmap, so you can see what's coming. The reality is GitHub doesn't have all the features Azure DevOps does, and when we work with customers, they will ask us like, hey, can we do this in GitHub? If data residency, compliance, there's so many questions, may or may not suit the customer needs. And also the features like Azure Boards are not in GitHub Actions. So there's so many great features in GitHub. So a lot of times we'll use GitHub as our source repo for all of our code, and we run the rest of our project out of Azure DevOps. So all of the boards, the tracking, the PM side is all of the boards, bugs, logging, all of it. And then the CI/CD pipeline we do from Azure DevOps. I can see in the next soon, as soon as it's out the roadmap, we can talk about it. Some features in GitHub Actions where we'll start doing more with Actions with customer projects.
Yeah, I've actually delved into GitHub Actions, even though that is absolutely not something that I know how to do. But I managed to deploy, thanks to Able actually, a virtual machine from code that's stored in a GitHub repo, and then Actions triggers it and pushes it into Azure. Now, it's probably not a great use case, right? But it's showing people the ability to do these things and inspiring them. And it was pretty cool to be able to use it for a use case that I understood, deploying a virtual machine, something I do probably every day, and being able to kind of manipulate it and get it working. So it's definitely cool. I'm also got a project as well trying to deploy a blog from a GitHub repo using GitHub Actions to our new static kind of web app thing that we have. That's been more challenging, April.
I might be writing a blog about that. We can chat about that offline.
There's been lots of swearing and lots of failed GitHub Actions in that repo if anyone hunts it down.
I see a co-project coming down the pipeline. Literally.
But that's going to have to involve alcohol. I don't want to touch that side project anymore.
Yeah, we can do it. There's plenty of alcohol. I have a full liquor cabinet. We'll be fine. Shannon asked, how do you handle something that changes super quickly? Any tips or techniques? Shannon, your question was pertaining to, is that technology in general, or was that a specific technology stack? And no, Kiv, that wasn't the same customer we both worked on, for the record. I know who Kiv's speaking about. No, it wasn't the same customer. I have a former colleague watching.
Awesome.
So I'm going to just address like quick changes, like fast changes, like IT changes so fast. If you were to sit out on the bench for 6 months and just shut down all of your devices, have no access to the outside world, I feel like I'd be out of job. I would scale up, obviously, but I think you have to, you're not going to be on top of it, and I think you have to accept that. Like, I go into customer meetings and they'll ask me a question about something they read about. I'm like, haven't even touched it. Do I tell the customer that? No. But in my head going, haven't touched it. So I will either look it up as I'm speaking to the customer. I say, let me have a look for you, or I'll ping someone internally and ask them if anyone's seen it. But I think it's just constant questions, learning and asking and delving into who might have the answer for something occasionally. But everything changes so fast in the cloud. I just don't expect to have my handle on like all the new stuff. I mean, I'd love to. The reality is I'm not. I'm just one person.
Yeah, I once had a manager who ages ago was a consultant, and it used to be when you had the textbooks, you know, you had that Windows Server book or that Exchange book or SharePoint book, and that was your gospel for like 5 years, right? And she always said, yeah, exactly, something like that. She always said, as long as you stayed a chapter ahead of the customer, you're going to be okay in engagements.
Yeah. Yes. I think, the thing I learned too when I started at Microsoft and even before, like I would go into customer engagements and customers have so many questions and they hear buzzwords. And I get it a lot working in DevOps. People have questions and they hear words and they know their bubble of IT. Like they know their organization, their heads down in it every day. They don't necessarily know what you know. So even if the customer knows a lot about how their systems work or something very specific, you usually come in with quite a bit of knowledge. And I think every person in tech needs to understand that, like whether you're a developer, operations, you have your knowledge and there's always going to be someone that knows more than you. You're going to go into a customer or working with your organization. Someone's going to throw out a buzzword or something they want to know about. And you bring that other technology set to the table. So finding a way how to relate to that is really key.
Yeah, the acronyms is a fun one. So I actually had a colleague reach out to me and he was like, I'm doing some work on the WAF and I hear that it's very similar to the CAF. And I was like,
well, they rhyme.
I was like, in my head, I'm going WAF as in web application, like firewall or something. And I'm like, but that's not the same as the CAF, which is the Cloud Adoption Framework. And I was like, right, you're going to have to explain what the acronym was. And then it was, I think it's well architected framework. And I was like, that's a new one. You're going to have to teach me about the WAF and I'll teach you about the CAF.
Yeah, awesome. So there's and the acronyms of Microsoft are probably the biggest pain point. Like I work for CSE and I'm a SSE. And then we have TPMs, we have SEs, we have PSEs, and then the list goes on. Like that's just in my team. Like it's ridiculous. The acronyms of I think we have a whole, I think somewhere at Microsoft, and I know it's there. We have like a whole, like, look up what all the acronyms mean. I just ask someone, I'm like, what's this mean?
Yeah.
And we put acronyms to everything in the cloud as well. WAF and CAF, they rhyme.
Yep. But that's interesting because you always need to be mindful when you're talking about acronyms, you try and explain them beforehand. And I've got to the stage where if I'm in a meeting, if someone mentions an acronym I have no idea about, I'm like, you need to stop. What was that? What are you talking about? Make sure we're on the same page. And that's, I think, also part of our job, right? You need to be not, like we were talking about earlier, when people ask us questions at events that we don't know the answer to. If you don't know something in a meeting, put up your hand and ask. There's no wrong question and there's no stupid question, right? So
I blame language barriers. And I say that like when I moved to the UK, I was like, places I could live in the world. England speaks English. You're right. They speak English. They don't speak American. So I always tell people I speak two languages, American and English, sometimes German, but there are language barriers. I've sat with customers and they've said something. I've sat with Scottish customers and I was like, can you please write that down? Like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm trying. I've got nothing. Like your accent's amazing, but there are some that are just thick and I don't know. I'm after being here 7.5 years, like I'm pretty good at it now. But for me, it's sometimes a language barrier. Also, when I work in other languages, when I say other language, other cultures, we all have different backgrounds and we all have different languages we speak. So their version of English, when they're trying to speak English, or English is not their first language. Like, for us to be natively in our country, to ask someone to say, can you explain that? We feel awkward. But if I sit in, I don't know, anywhere anywhere in Europe and ask someone where English is their second language, I'm like, what do you mean? Like, that has absolutely gotten me over my fear of asking. I mean, I was pretty much over it a long time ago, but that really solidified it for me. If I'm with even the guys in the team I was working on, if they would say something, and they admitted, like, English isn't their first language. So sometimes I'd have to sit there and say, before I'd ask, I'd think, right, what was he attempting to communicate? So communication's a tough part of IT and tech, but it's so critical. And it's one that's kind of a soft skill, if you will, but yeah.
I know. And I actually had this conversation with a colleague, and it's, I think, harder now that we're all remote. Like, my team's all remote. I think we span like 7 different time zones. So yeah, that's masses of different countries. So I never see them. I don't see them 8 hours a day. I'm not sitting next to them. I'm not seeing them eat their breakfast, hear about their kids and, what TV they're watching and stuff like that. So you need to make that more conscious effort now. And I don't know if your team's all remote, but you need to make that more conscious effort so that you understand some of those language barriers, cultural barriers, and how they work as well. Because how they work is very probably different than how you work. And then that drives your behaviour and reactions. And yeah, I'm supposed we could actually talk about this topic for about an hour.
Yeah. I think the UK people will get a kick out of this one. So my new team is all Brits, and we were chatting last week, and we are getting to know each other as a new team. So usually in a new team, you get together and get together in an office. We're also remote. And one of the guys in the team said, we're all crackers. Now, I'm going to translate this the best that I can for my American friends that are on this. Crackers in England means you're like crazy or just not right in the head. The American version is entirely different. So I had to sit there for a minute and I went, you can't say that. Oh, like, I've been here long enough, you think I'd recognize it, but it didn't click in my own head. So, and everyone in my team almost everyone has a wicked sense of humor, and I love it. But we're now communicating over short calls or all-day customer sessions and instant message on Teams, and trying to translate that's really tough. So as a group, we're trying to organize like a team lunch at some point, remote team lunch. My old team did it as well, and that's tough across time zones. But yeah, it's really tough.
Awesome. So I think we're kind of topping off the hour, April. So kind of wrapping it up. So thank you for doing this. I know we spoke about it, I think it was maybe 2 or 3 months ago, trying to organize this. And we finally done it. So yeah, it's good fun. So thank you for that. Thank you to everybody that tuned in and asked us a question or gave us some banter in the chat. Actually, we've got one last question, which is actually a good one, Carol, to finish off on. If you're going to give someone one piece of advice, what would it be? What would it be, April?
I have a phrase, one more than yesterday.
Okay.
So sometimes we have a bad day, and I would say in lockdown, we've all had a lot of bad days. Like, that's reality. And there's no getting away from that. And it's okay to admit that. So I have a phrase, beat yesterday or one more than yesterday. So, okay, today, maybe I failed to get something done, or I failed to do whatever. I make that extra effort to do a little bit better. So I'll use a push-up example. There's like the challenge on social media to do 25 push-ups for 25 days. That's great, but that's not really for everyone. So, okay, I failed to do my push-ups today. If I do one, I did one more than yesterday. And I think the same goes for the situation we're in right now. Like, okay, I didn't get done this task today, but you know what? Tomorrow I'm going to open it up. And even if I write one sentence for my blog tomorrow, that's one more sentence than yesterday. And it's one step closer. And I just may be mentally at a block or having a bad day, or project work is priority, and that's absolutely fine. So I might just write one sentence. That's one more than yesterday in my book.
That's pretty good advice, actually, to finish on. So thank you for that, April. Awesome. So thank you, everybody. Have a good week, and we will catch you again.
Thanks, everyone.